Welcome back to Financial Literacy for Lawyers, Bridging Law and Business. I'm Professor Seth C. Oranburg, and if financial jargon like assets, liabilities, or, God forbid, EBITDA ever made you glaze over, I get it. I can feel like there's a barrier keeping you from the insights you need. So, our goal today is to bust that jargon using a fun Star Wars analogy with Han Solo's smuggling business and to make the three main financial statements approachable and memorable. And if Star Wars isn't your thing, don't worry. I'll also include some straightforward, non galactic alternatives too. By the end, these terms will feel like familiar tools in your legal kit, so you'll be ready to bridge law and business in real world scenarios. As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. For specific legal or financial advice, consult a qualified professional. Financial statements are packed with terms that can seem intimidating or abstract, like stepping into an unfamiliar courtroom. But just as you mastered legal jargon through practice and context, we can do the same here. We'll use Star Wars as our guide, and we'll think about Han Solo running his smuggling enterprise to decode the basics in a way that's engaging and I hope a little sticky. Our goal? To turn confusion into confidence so you can spot business risks without getting bogged down. Jargon creates anxiety because it's dense and often underexplained, making financials feel like they're written in an alien script. Without clear breakdowns, you might avoid diving into client reports, and so you might miss early signs of trouble, like insolvency or fraud. But once we translate these terms into everyday concepts, I think you'll see they're not as complex as they might have seemed. They're just labels for business realities that tie directly to legal issues that you actually handle every day. As lawyers, financial literacy isn't optional. It's what lets you ask probing questions, collaborate with business teams, and provide comprehensive advice. Whether you're reviewing a merger, advising on compliance, or structuring contracts, understanding these basics helps you bridge the gap between law and business. I hope to empower you to detect inconsistencies early, build stronger transactions, and earn client trust. Plus, if you're feeling anxious around numbers and around people who talk in jargon, this approach will help you make you feel more reassured and help you engage with the boardroom more effectively. First, the balance sheet is really a snapshot. So, the first thing to understand is that a balance sheet is a frozen moment in time. It's always written as of a particular date, usually a fiscal year end. So, in our example, it's like a photo of Han pitching his services in the Mos Eisley Cantina. If you remember that iconic scene where he meets Luke and tries to convince him he can be a good smuggler, it's that one moment and about his business at that moment in time. So a balance sheet is a snapshot about what the business owns, what are its assets, what it owes, what are its liabilities, and the owner's stake, which is the owner's equity. Assets are resources with value. So in our continued hypothetical, Han Solo's major asset is his Millennium Falcon, which is his property. And he might have a stash of credits, cash as well. Liabilities are going to be the obligations. And in this case, Han has a massive debt to Jabba the Hutt. And that loan has a high interest, and it actually is enforced by bounty hunters. So there's some real liabilities here, too. Equity is what's left over after we subtract liabilities from assets, which is what Han gets to keep and take home. And we'd also include his partnership with Chewie in some way. So Chewie or Chewbacca is either an employee or a partner. It's not clear just yet. But we have to think about this from the perspective of liabilities and assets. So if Chewie is a partner, then Chewie's interests go in the category of equity. If Chewie is an employee, then Chewie's actually a liability. And if liabilities exceed assets, it's like Han could get frozen in carbonite. The business could be insolvent and unable to cover its debts, which could trigger a legal shift. But that's not the whole picture. Next, we have to look at the income statement, which I'm describing as the movie. The income statement's a dynamic story of performance over time, like the arc of the original Star Wars trilogy. The income statement tracks revenues, which is money coming in, expenses, which are costs going out, and net income, which is profit and loss. Revenues are earnings from operations. So that's like Han's fees for smuggling spice, or in this case, passengers. The expenses would include costs like fuel for the Falcon, bribes to the Imperials, or repairs after a close call. Net income is the bottom line. Did Han end up the period with a profit, or did the expenses eat it all up, leaving a loss? You want to watch here for creative editing in the film because you can do all sorts of tricks as an accountant to inflate revenues by booking jobs not yet completed. And at some point, it does border on fraud. But the thing is, I use the term movie to describe the income statement because it is highly edited. It's not entirely factual. Everything in it is real, but it's not always the whole story, which is where we move to our third document, the cash flow statement, which is the behind the scenes footage. This is the raw, unedited truth of money management, like the backstory of the credits and debits in the gallery. It's divided into operating activities, which is core business cash, like payments actually received from smuggling runs minus daily expenses. It includes investing activities, so buying or selling long term assets, like some upgrade to the hyperdrive, and financing activities, which is raising or paying back funds, which could include borrowing from Lando or settling with Jabba. This reveals if the money is actually flowing and not just promised, because you could have booked value that isn't realized. And the cash flow statement breaks through that illusion, breaks through the fourth wall, as they say. And so reviewing it is essential because profits on paper don't pay bills if cash is tied up. For a non Star Wars alternative, think of a small law firm. The balance sheet snapshot shows assets like office equipment as property or client receivables as money owed. And there are liabilities like bank loans or unpaid rent. And then there's equity, the partner's investment minus debts. The income statement movie covers revenue from billed fees, expenses like salaries and marketing, and leads to net income as the firm's profit. The cash flow behind the scenes will track the operating cash from client payments minus costs, and will show how the investments in new software or financing through loans or partner contribution results in a particular position at a particular time. So, to wrap up with our quick jargon buster recap, assets are what's owed for future benefit, liabilities are debts or obligations, equity is owner's residual interest, revenues are money earned from salaries or services, expenses are costs to generate revenues, net income is revenues minus expenses, and cash flow is the actual inflow and outflow of dollar bills. These are the building blocks, and we'll build on them throughout the season to bridge law and business. In episode 3, we'll roll up our sleeves and dig into the balance sheet snapshot. That's the ultimate tool for spotting insolvency and other business risks before they affect deals or operations. But if you want to pause here and try an exercise to make it stick, pick 3 jargon terms from today: assets, revenues, cash flow, expenses, and just explain them in your own words. It'll help you reinforce what we've covered. And if you're excited about applying this, you can also look at investopia.com and read some more about how these terms are used by business people. But for now, remember that jargon is a hurdle, but it's not a barrier. Once it's cleared, financial statements become powerful bridges between law and business. And you've taken a step already today. I look forward to taking that next step with you. And until then, I'm Professor Seth C. Oranburg, and this has been Organized.